Hey there, welcome. Have you ever had that feeling where you know your English is technically correct, but it doesn't sound quite right? Well, today we're going to unlock a concept that native speakers use all the time without even thinking about it. And honestly, it's the secret to closing that gap between sounding good and sounding truly natural.
So, let's start with a really common example. Take a look at this sentence. I would like to raise my vocabulary. Now, grammatically, it's perfect. No mistakes there. But if you said this to a native speaker, they'd know exactly what you mean, but something would just feel a little bit off.
So, what is going on here? Why does a sentence that follows all the rules of grammar still manage to sound so awkward? You know, this is a super common hurdle for so many people learning English, and it really gets to the heart of the difference between textbook English and how people actually talk.
The answer? Well, it's all about a concept that's going to totally change how you think about learning new words. It's less about memorizing words in isolation and so much more about the company they keep.
And that brings us to this idea, collocation. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. A collocation is just a group of words that really like to be used together. Think of them as best friends. It's not enough to know what a word means. You got to know which other words it likes to hang out with. And this slide right here, it shows you exactly what I mean. Instead of saying raise vocabulary, a native speaker would just naturally say something like build your vocabulary, or develop your vocabulary, or maybe expand your vocabulary. See, the verb raise just doesn't collocate. It doesn't pair naturally with the noun vocabulary. It's a subtle difference for sure, but it makes all the difference.
Okay, so let's dive into some of these power combos that you can start using pretty much right away to make your English sound way more descriptive and a whole lot more precise.
First up, let's take the word considerable. By itself, it basically just means large or a lot. Pretty simple. But its real power, its real magic, comes from the words it partners up with.
So just look at how considerable loves to pair with these specific nouns. We don't really say a considerable time, do we? No, we'd more likely say a considerable amount of time, or we might talk about making considerable progress on a project, or how someone has considerable influence. Learning these little phrases is like finding a shortcut to sounding more fluent. Okay, next up we have the adverb deeply. Oh, this is a fantastic word. It adds so much emphasis, meaning something like extremely or strongly. Think of it as a supercharger for your adjectives. And the great thing about deeply is its range. I mean, it works perfectly for negative feelings, right? You can be deeply worried about an exam or talk about a deeply flawed argument. But it's just as powerful for positive emotions. You can be deeply moved by a song or, of course, be deeply in love. It's just an incredibly useful and versatile word.
All right, it's time. Time to tackle one of the most overused words in the entire English language, very. Now look, using very isn't wrong, but relying on it all the time can make your English sound a little flat. But the good news is there are some really simple ways to level up and leave very in the dust.
So, there are two main ways to break the very habit. First, you can just swap out very for a stronger, more interesting adverb, and the second method, which is even more powerful, is to replace the whole very plus adjective phrase with a single, much more precise adjective. Let's break down how to do both.
Okay, so with method 1, you're basically just giving your adverb an upgrade. It's like instead of plain vanilla ice cream, you're adding some sprinkles, maybe some chocolate sauce. You're just swapping out that basic, boring very for an adverb that has a bit more flavor and specificity.
So instead of saying something is very important, why not say it's extremely important? Or a business isn't very successful, it's highly successful. You're not just very thankful, you are truly thankful. Each one of these alternatives just paints a much clearer, more vivid picture than plain old very ever could. Now for method 2, this is where things get really fun, because this is even more powerful. This is where you ditch the very plus adjective combo entirely and replace it with one single, strong, descriptive word. This is a game changer for sounding more advanced.
I mean, just look at this. Why would you say something was very good when you could say it was incredible or spectacular or phenomenal? Instead of very bad, try terrible or dreadful or even atrocious. And don't just be very happy, be delighted, ecstatic, or jubilant. Can you feel that? Can you feel how much more energy and precision those single words have?
And we can just keep going. Don't say you're very tired. Tell someone you're exhausted, or drained, or burnt out. A person isn't just very beautiful, they're lovely, or gorgeous, elegant, or stunning. Using these words will instantly make your English sound so much richer and more fluent. It's an instant upgrade.
Okay, so we've gone through a ton of examples. But what's the big takeaway here? How do you actually put all of this into practice in your real life? Well, it's really about shifting your whole mindset, moving away from thinking of this as a task, like memorizing a list, and towards seeing it as a long-term skill you're building. And this, right here, is the most important point. The goal is not to go and memorize a giant dictionary of collocations. That's impossible. The real skill is to train your ears and your eyes to start recognizing these patterns out in the wild. When you're listening to a song, or watching a movie, or reading an article. Your brain will just naturally start to pick up on what sounds right, and before you know it, you'll be using them too, without even thinking about it.
So that brings me to my final thought for you. After seeing how these awesome word partnerships work, what collocations are you going to start listening for today? What cool combinations are you going to try out in your next conversation? Because that is where the real learning happens.